Beckett served as co-pilot, and he solved the pedal's issue by wearing a pair of 1970s platform shoes that the online vendor Rocketman 1972 had sworn once belonged to Elton John. Beckett overcame the controls problem by flicking the required switches with a long-handled reacher grabber that he'd borrowed from the garden shed. None of these workarounds were strictly necessary, as the Nano-Artificial Neural Network Intelligence System, or NANI, inhabiting Miles's graphene-smart eyeglasses, could have flown the jet more competently than any Top Gun pilot. But the twins enjoyed the experience, so Nanny had promised not to interfere unless the jet went into a steep nosedive, something that happened more often than one might think, especially when Beckett grew bored. As the foul tachyon passed over the emerald green of Cuba far below, Myles relinquished the jet's controls to Beckett, who was without question the more intuitive pilot of the two, and launched into the latest in his ongoing series of lectures on his favourite subject, that being why our brother Artemis is an idiot. Myles cleared his throat, straightened his gold-threaded tie, and initiated this oration with two audacious lies. I hate to speak ill of the absent, Beck, but our brother Artemis is an idiot. Beckett adjusted the flaps with his grabber, though the lever was within his natural reach.
Artemis is not an idiot. He built a spaceship.
Spaceship indeed, said Myles scornfully. Are you referring to the Artemis Interstellar, which he modestly named after himself, by the way? That craft is barely more than a wind-up flying yo-yo. I would be embarrassed to breach the exosphere in such a contraption.
Our big brother built an actual spaceship,
insisted Beckett.
Idiots don't build spaceships.
Myles was far from finished with this latest effort to demean Artemis. And Interstellar? What kind of a name is that? Technically speaking, which is the only way a scientist ought to speak, the entire human race is interstellar. This was perhaps a good point, but Beckett rarely cared enough about his twins' arguments to engage for more than a sentence or two. So instead, he moved to a related topic.
Is Artie in trouble, Myles?
Of course not, said Myles, instantly softening, for there was absolutely nothing in the world that upset him more than his twins' discomfort. This probably had something to do with the fact that Myles and Beckett were the world's only documented set of conjoined dizygotic twins. Artemis is not stupid enough to get into trouble, he explained. I'm just saying that our older brother is not clever enough to be taken seriously as a scientist. At any rate, ignorance is bliss, as they say, and so Artemis would not realize he was in trouble even if that were the case. Beckett adjusted the jet's tail elevators, plunging the tachyon into a steep descent, which was absolutely his favourite kind.
All you had to say was no, Myles, he said,
and then Beckett had his second serious thought in as many minutes.
Are we in trouble?
Myles's intestines attempted to tie themselves into a bow as the jet lost altitude at a rate of 10,000 feet per minute, but he remained calm and considered his answer. Definitely not, said Myles, who generally used the word definitely to overcompensate for a lie. Today is merely reconnaissance, a flyover to get a feel for our target and take some photographs.
You said definitely,
said Beckett. We are possibly moving toward trouble, brother mine, admitted Myles. But not today, and when we do, it certainly won't be anything I can't handle, and surely treasure is worth a little trouble.
Trouble and treasure,
said Beckett, levelling out before Nanny assumed flight control.
Great. Do you think I will get to cluster punch anyone?
I would think that cluster punching is a distinct possibility, but you may only punch bad people, said Myles, smoothing back his lustrous black hair, and only if they absolutely deserve it, which, to be fair, bad people often do.